Welcome to my case study 4 for teaching students with exceptional needs. This case study I'm doing is over vaccines and autism. So my research question for this case study was, do vaccines actually cause autism? So before I get into this, I wanted to start with how it all started. All this research is from thehistoryofvaccines.org and an academic journal. So it first started when a man named Andrew Wakefield did a study, and he originally was trying to link bowel disease to the MMR vaccine, and he also noticed that in his research, a lot of the cases where it was linked, it was with children with autism. So then he thought that the MMR vaccine possibly was linked to autism in children. So after his findings were released to the press, people across Great Britain and the United States all over the place stopped MMR vaccines. Because of this, a lot of people started to extensively study the link between the MMR vaccine and children with autism, and multiple sources in the research have proved that there is no link between the two. So then they later went on and they discredited Andrew Wakefield's work and his study, and he actually lost his medical license for it. So later on, people still were kind of skeptical, and the FDA, they set regulations about the amount of mercury in food, and they also noticed that the amount of mercury in the MMR vaccines exceeded this amount, so people thought that mercury possibly was a link to the autism, and so they looked into it and they found that the type of harmful mercury in food is called methylmercury, and the type of mercury found in the MMR vaccine is called ethyl mercury. So there's a difference there, and the ethyl mercury that's in the vaccines is actually naturally found in the human body. So it's kind of hard to compare the two there because they're two different types of mercury. And multiple studies found that there was no evidence of the MMR vaccine having a link to autism because of this. And on top of this, today, the mercury thimerosal is no longer used in most vaccines anyways. So there also is a recent controversy. So this talks about a study that was done on Twitter between 2009 and 2015. And it was about, does vaccinating your children really cause autism? So they took a sample of tweets found on Twitter that all had to do with this controversy, and they found that almost 50% of the sample tweets that were collected on Twitter contained people's beliefs behind the anti-vaccine views, which was pretty concerning. And they also noticed that as media coverage went up on the topic, so did the amount of tweets that were surfacing Twitter at the time in the United States. And many medical professionals found that actually monitoring these tweets is very helpful to them on social media because they can uncover many misconceptions or concerns that the public has on this issue. So what does the research say? Right here is 4 quotes, all from different medical or academic journals from professionals that have done studies on the 2 MMR vaccine and linking it to autism, and all 4 of them stated in their conclusion, in quotations here, that there is no link. The first one was done in Denmark, a study recently within the past year, and it said that the vaccine does not increase a risk for autism, nor does it trigger autism in children. And the next one here talks about there was no risk for children developing autism, regardless whether they were at risk or not. So they took into consideration where the older sibling had autism as well. And the next one there says also, again, that the vaccination does not increase the risk for autism, nor does it trigger it, and is not associated with clustering of autism cases after the vaccination. And lastly, talks about the relationship between the two, and again states that there is no support to conclude that there is any link between the two. So to answer my research question, do vaccines cause autism? No. A big part of this is that many researchers have found that autism actually occurs in the early stages of embryonic development, and in most cases, children aren't developed until later after in life, but looking at them, they can find that the underlying factor, it was developed before birth. It wasn't something that they developed later on in life because of outside factors. It is very rare that children do develop characteristics of autism after birth later on in their life. So this also goes to show that the MMR vaccine is very unlikely to cause autism in children later on in life, because autism is something that you normally develop before birth. And a lot of people in the United States, though, may think otherwise because of the rapid rising rate of autism in the past years. So, what can we do? I looked at an article that was written by pediatricians talking about their fight against people that refuse to have their children vaccinated. And they talked about some of the misconceptions and what are some things that we can do. And the number one thing is educating parents on the facts and research. People just mainly, I feel, are uninformed, and one way to get around this problem is to inform people. Pediatricians also said that we need to let people know that it can save their children's life. These vaccines are preventing against life-threatening diseases, some of which including cancer. It prevents a spread of the diseases in a safe way by developing an immunity. Number 4, the vaccines are safe and effective, and serious side effects are very rare. And lastly, I think this is really important, is that pediatricians tell those who are against the vaccines that MMR is a life-threatening disease that can happen to your children, infect your children, and autism is not. Obviously, all parents wish the best for their child, and they hope that their child doesn't end up with autism, but it's better to save their life than it is for that to happen. So I think that's most important for parents to know. So, here are my sources. Thank you for watching.